Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. That's you, Jodie. It's the Jodie Show today.
It is a Jodie show. I love
I
it.
know. I'm really excited to share my friend Jodie Harvala with all of you, my listeners. Jodie, oh my goodness, I was thinking this morning. I just keep thinking of the red chair or the red couch at Babs.
Right? I know every time I think of you, it's the red couch at Babs every time, and my laundry pile.
And your laundry pile. I know it's been a long time. We've known each other. And when I first met Jodie, she was doing radio sales
Yep.
and not real happy in her
No,
career.
no, it was really fun for a long time, and it got really toxic for me. But it was really fun for a really long time, and then it just wasn't.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's probably true for a lot of us if we're honest about ourselves, our lives, our careers. And so Jodie and I first connected to talk about that, I guess. And I was sort of new in my coaching life at the time. And Jodie kept doing this thing behind her head with her hand. And she kept saying, there's something here. There's something weird behind my head. And
I remember that.
I had no idea what you were talking about. It was like, I
didn't even know I was doing that till you pointed it out. You're like, what's this? I'm like, I have no idea what this is. Like, this was all the shit I didn't like. And then this is the stuff I did like.
Yeah. And but you can't see this.
Hearing each other's names. And we hooked up at that up at NDSU. I was like, oh, you're Jodie? I'm Jodie. We're supposed to meet. Yeah. So I remember that too.
Yeah, I remember that too. So for those of you who aren't watching, if you're just listening on the podcast, you can't see how expressive Jodie is with her hands. And it's really fun.
I do talk with my hands.
It's great though. It's so just FYI, as a reminder, all of the raw video is up on my YouTube channel. So if you want to see Jodie talking with her hands.
Yes, I do that a lot.
Do that. So Jodie, will you just kind of, I don't know, summarize your journey? Because I'll start here by saying Jodie Harvala is really famous and she's gotten to be really well known in the world of spiritual things. And when we were talking earlier about this hand behind your head thing, I think there was something there that was calling to Jodie, but she didn't either know or
I had no idea.
I
had no idea. I don't think I've ever been called famous before.
You are famous. You're famous.
That's kind of fun. I love that. I would like that more. Yeah, so I did a lot of different jobs in my 20s and even a little bit into my 30s. And when I got pregnant with my first son, I went to a psychic. And I'd always loved psychics. I'd always been a believer. It was always super cool to me. I never was like, didn't believe in it or anything like that. And she's like, oh, you're going to do what I'm doing in like 10 years. And I was like, okay, crazy lady. Nope. It was Susie. And I was like, nope, you're crazy. And I literally think I told her that. And then 10 years later, literally, I started taking a meditation course and I was really looking for something because I was a recruiter at that time. And people kept wanting to go for their passion. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, how do I help people find their passion? I had no idea. Ended up through all these different steps. And the gentleman that was teaching the meditation class kept calling me psychic. I'm like, God, stop saying that. And he's like, you are. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And I was, and I just didn't realize it. Like, I was really always sensitive as a kid emotionally. I knew when people were lying. I knew when people were in a couple and they shouldn't be, like, they were just not a good match. I knew some of that kind of stuff. Seen a couple ghosts here and there, but I really consider myself a developed psychic medium because I really developed it over many, many years and taking many, many classes and getting coaching and mentoring and all that kind of stuff. So I am a psychic medium. I have been professionally for I have to keep expanding my years because I keep thinking to my children and they're so old now. So at least about 15 years now, because Foster's 20 are going to be 20 and Keaton just turned 16. And so about 15 years now, full time. I've been doing it full time. I clear houses. I teach classes. I do mentorship and retreats and all the woo-woo stuff. But I've done many things in my life as far as job wise.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so funny when you say I was a recruiter, I worked at a radio station. I saw an occasional ghost. I'm like,
every once in a while I saw that stuff every once in a while. And it was really fun. Like my grandma, when she passed away, like she came to my bedside and told me that she was saying goodbye. And I have found with people, you know, I've talked to hundreds of people now and thousands of people, and a lot of them have those same kind of experiences. And I was like, oh, I thought that was kind of normal. And it's not, you know, and it's not normal for people to feel as deeply as I feel about certain things. And so it was it's kind of a rough road for a while there when I was developing all my feelings, because I had kind of shut my feelings down.
Yeah.
And you can't do that if you're going to do this work.
I think that's a really good point, Jodie. I'm hearing that a lot as a career coach. I hear from people in business where they try desperately to shut down their feelings, especially at
Yep.
work.
Yep.
And you're talking about feeling like an empath would feel, and feeling, you know,
Or even just emotional feelings.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I didn't like to feel the feel. I was like, no, thank you.
I remember that. And I'm going to use some language. The language might come out here. This is being real. I know Jodie really well.
I kind of swear I have a potty mouth. I'll try to be nice about it though.
It's okay. This is being real. But part of it, I knew you when you were very, I would say, pissed off.
Oh yeah.
And resistant, angry. Yeah. And there were little things that would set you off a lot. And when we would meet, we keep talking about this red couch at a coffee shop here in Fargo, but that's where we would meet. We would have these conversations at this coffee shop. And it felt to me like you were resisting knowing something about yourself.
Yep. Well, and I think knowing that I was so angry and didn't know why. And I was angry for so long, and it just so pissed me off that I didn't know why I was so angry. And actually a horse taught me why I was so angry. I did this session. It's called Gestalt therapy. And it's this amazing, amazing, amazing session that with my friend Sarah. And this horse kind of stood in front of me, and she goes, oh, isn't this interesting? She said, your human self has something to say to your spirit. And I was like, okay. And all this shit just fell out of my face. I was so pissed. I was so tired, and I was exhausted, and I didn't like how I felt all the time. And just all this rage came out. And then she said, now switch spots with the horse. And then I was like in my spirit self, and my energy shifted and my language shifted, and it was loving and it was supportive. And it was like, listen to it. Like my human self, like my head and my heart were in such a fight with each other. And so, of course, I had all this fighting in my outside life because my inside was fighting. And so once I got those two kind of in alignment, and I do this at my retreats now, I actually take people through the same exercise at my retreats. And it's like a miracle exercise, because people don't realize how pissed off they are at their spirit, and then they can't work together. And so once I got that aligned, I can always tell when the two of them need to have a little conversation. And I was just so, I just didn't feel heard, and I didn't feel heard in my life most of my life. And so that was a big thing, that my own spirit wasn't listening either. And so I had to really work through a lot of anger stuff, because I'm not an angry person. That's what I really realized, is I'm not really angry person. I'm pretty fun. And I like to have fun, and I like to mess around and do all that kind of stuff. But there was such a responsibility to stay angry. And that felt more family stuff, you know, just stay a little bit angry all the time, because then you're not disappointed. And I thought, ugh, hey, yuck, what a way to live.
Now I'm thinking about that as it relates to a lot of people, especially right now where our world is in such angst.
Yep.
And you said it felt, you didn't say it like this, but it felt justified to be angry.
It felt justified. And I also was very afraid. And fear, anger a lot of times is fear turned inwards, you know, and then it comes out as anger. But if I think back to some of those moments, I was just afraid. And the hell if I'm going to be afraid, you know, because I was a tough girl and, you know, independent, and I can take care of my own shit. But I was so afraid all the time. And one of my big turnarounds, I think I was reading some book, and one of the exercises was to go write down everything that you're afraid of. And it was 2 a.m. I was having a panic attack, because I used to have panic attacks, and everyone in my house was sleeping, and I'm sitting on the toilet writing away everything I was afraid of, pages and pages and pages. I was like, how can one person be so afraid of so many things? And some of them were dumb things, and some of them were really serious things, and, you know, all this kind of fear coming out. And I wrote, I am afraid every second of every minute of every hour of every day.
Wow.
And I thought, what? how can I be that afraid all the time? And I remember asking Spirit, I was like, angels, you got to help me not live like this anymore. And I had this huge, amazing shift of energy come out of it. I've never felt anything since. And that really is what started this whole, psychic medium energy, emotions, all that kind of stuff. But it was that sentence that really was like, oh my God, I do not want to live like that. I'm still afraid a lot of the times, but now I just have learned like it's not real, or it's just a waste of time. It's distraction. And a lot of that anger that people are feeling right now is fear.
Very good. So tell me, let's go back a little bit. When we started working together, you were still at the radio station, and then you went to be the recruiter.
Yep.
And then I remember that quite well as well.
There's a lot of stories there.
Yeah. Well, and I think I try to relate this to anybody else's story. There are a lot of stories everywhere.
Oh God, yeah. Especially with jobs. Yeah.
Well, it seems that you were running away from something instead of towards something at that point in your career.
Yep. Well, and I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And most of the people around me all had careers. And I was like job jumping, like almost every year at that point, I would change jobs. And I remember I had a relative that she did the same thing for years, 40 years. Every year she's had a new job. And she goes, who the fuck cares? She goes, who cares? She goes, do you get paid more on every job? I was like, yeah. And she goes, do you have more fun when you go to new jobs? I'm like, yeah. And she goes, do you know when your time is over? I'm like, yeah, I really do. Like I changed the furniture around. I didn't know I was changing the energy at the time, but I would work somewhere. I would make them paint the office or get new furniture or move things around. And then I would be off and I would go do something different. And so I didn't know I was working towards something, because I think if I would have known what I was working towards, then I definitely would have ran the other way. For sure.
So at some point though, there was a breaking point for you. I mean, I remember when you did On the Lawn.
Yeah.
And you were just looking for something to keep you going. I mean, we have to think about that as we make a living. We humans are looking to make a living, and we forget that part of that is making our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And all I was living for is pay the bills.
Yeah.
Really, really.
Tell us about that shift. How did that shift for you?
Well, it was funny because I was also working for Virgil's husband. What's his name? Michael. I was working for Michael part-time as well. And I did not enjoy what I was doing with him, but I so enjoyed our talks. Like he's such a honey of a guy to listen to, or, just to talk to. He's so heartfelt. And I was doing On the Lawn. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, I don't want to do either one of these. Like I was starting to take off in my clearing. People were wanting clearings of their houses all over the place. People were wanting readings. I was having so much fun, definitely making more money. And I was like, why am I wasting my time doing all these other things? Because I also loved working for small businesses and I love to watch them grow, but I kept putting all my energy into all these other people's businesses. And I thought, why would I not put my own energy into my own business? Even though I didn't know what I was doing by any means. And I just made a decision. I woke up one day and I just thought, okay, I'm done. And I went outside and, we had flamingos all over my car and I tore that sticker off. And I remember Eli came home and he's like, oh, I guess you're done. I'm like, yep, because we were supposed to do that together. And then he got let go at grandma's because they closed. You don't really get let go, but they closed. And he was trying to find his new career. And so he wasn't around the way we had planned for him to be around. And I just was like, I just can't hold all these people up. Like, I just need to hold myself up. And then that's when I really stepped into my business, and it really grew quite quickly. And it continues to grow, thankfully.
So before that, you were working 2 other jobs. You were doing this on the side. When you decided to embrace I'm going to call it a gift, because I think we probably all have.
We all have. Yeah, for sure.
Because you teach classes in that. So apparently it's a skill you can get better at. But you were doing this on the side. What had you embrace the things you were running away from when you decided to start taking classes?
Well, I had to embrace that I was actually good at readings. I really had to embrace that I could hear, feel, and sense things that a lot of people couldn't. They could, they just maybe didn't know how to, right? I had to embrace, I was a good teacher. I had to embrace, I was really good at clearing spaces. I'm really good at that. And I had to start telling people, like, I'm really good at this, just give me a shot because I'm really good at it. And I was really good at teaching, which I never thought of myself as a teacher. And but when I was a little kid, we always played school. And we always played business owners. And it was really funny. You kind of look back to your childhood, what you enjoyed. It really does kind of come out in your adulthood. But I had to embrace I was good at something, because my whole message I had for myself was that you're never good enough. And so I actually had to be good enough. And that was a big turn. And that was a huge turn.
Yeah. Well, and I think people who are struggling during this great resignation and all these things that are happening in America right now, if that piece right there could be helpful to anyone, to just take a look at what you're not only what you're good at, but what you love to do, what you can,
where can you make a change? I was talking about this yesterday in one of my lives. I was like, if what's happening now, you're called to do something about it, go do something about it. Yelling from the top of the roofs isn't going to do much, but if you can help in some way, like, I'm not going to run for politics. I'm not good at it. One of my best friends is. I'm like, dude, you should really run for office because she'd be amazing. And that's not me. But if some woman came to me and was struggling with that decision, I can help with that, because I can see bigger pictures. I can feel the emotions. I can feel where she's hiding from herself. I can feel the choices that are good for her. I can hear the outside voices. Like, I'm good at that part, so I can make a change in that way. So I think if all these people that are angry and wanting to burn the world down could channel that into somewhere where it could be more helpful and create change from what they're aligned with, that's where change is made. In my opinion.
Well, I don't think it's only just your opinion. I would say that's got to be true. I mean, and I think, Jodie, knowing you and knowing how you can you own your shit, but you also own your shine.
Yeah, I try to. And there's, the last few years, my shine has struggled, when my dad got sick and I had lost 15 people last year by death. And that knocked me on my ass. So my shine was not shining. And when things like what's going on in the world happen, that like pulls my shine back out, which I think is interesting, because it's like, oh, does all this shit have to happen for me to shine? Yeah, sometimes that's what pulls you out of whatever is, not letting you shine. And there's a lot of people that could shine right now if they got through the anger piece and got into their shine. I think that could change a lot.
I love that. Anybody listening, this is what Jodie does for you, for me. She's done.
I can see your shine.
Well, she can always see that even when we can't see it. So if we've dulled our own shine, I mean, that's where, hearing Jodie's journey and hearing how the anger was what stopped her when she was in a place that wasn't right for her. She can actually guide you because she's been there.
Oh yeah, I've been there many times. And I think that's the thing, is either we go in a circle or we go in this kind of corkscrew where it just gets bigger and bigger, and it still might come around. I was just talking to a client this morning, you know what? That old shit still comes around, but look at how much time it's been since it's come around, and you were only in it for 20 minutes instead of weeks or months. Wow. So I think the world is trying to figure out how to get on that spiral instead of in the same circle.
Ooh, that's really good. That's a great visual.
Yeah.
So you started, you left a job and you started your own business. You said, I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. How did you learn the business part of your business?
I ordered that up, actually. I remember it was actually during the flood, or a flood, one of the floods in town here. And I remember sitting in my car and I was over by the river, and I was like, all right, Spirit, you know what? You want me to do this weird ass stuff? I will say yes to it. I will 100% say yes to doing all this wacko weird stuff, because it is weird. But you have to send me somebody that can show me the way. Like every step they need. I remember saying they have to have integrity. They need to know what they're doing. They need to be open to sharing with me. They need to help me. And 2 weeks later, I met Sunny. And I already had Wes Hamilton and Lori Palm and some friends, and And I met Sunny Dawn Johnston, and she's been a huge mentor for years for me. And her business is we do very similar stuff. I mean, she's got her own style, obviously, as I do. And she's really showed me step by step how to build my business. And a lot of people are like, oh, you still work with her? You know, she doesn't know everything. I'm like, she doesn't need to know everything. She knows about my business because she does it. Like, she does it. And so I found someone that was doing what I wanted to do, but they were kind of ahead of me in a way, you know, not a better than way, but they just had done it longer. And she was willing to share. And she was one of the only people that would share anything I asked. She doesn't ever hold back. And I thought, I want to be that kind of business owner. So if someone asks me a question, like, I'm going to tell them, how much do you make? I'll tell you, I don't care, because I had someone mirror that for me. And to me, if something doesn't work, I can always tell, because she always wants to make her own decision. But she's like, yeah, we did that. And, you know, you can think about that. And I'm like, oh, okay, it didn't work. All right, fine. And she'll tell you why it worked, why it didn't work. But having a model of a business, of something that I wanted to do, and someone that was willing to mentor me in that was probably the thing that got me through. My accountant is amazing. I cried for months every time I went into her office, because that money piece, really, I felt so stupid about. Just finances and taxes and all that kind of stuff. And I would sit down and I would just be ashamed because I didn't know. And she's like, why would you know? Who's ever taught you this? This is not something. My dad owned his own business and never raised his rates, and, you know, just ran it, you know, just as basic as he could. And so I didn't have any training in that. And so I really hired people, or sought out people, or paid people better than me to teach me. I'm just very picky. You know, I didn't try all the classes. I didn't do all the things. I really went with the things that really spoke to me and made sense for me.
Yeah. So that's a lesson in business. Now, the business, you've already said, it's wacky, it's weird.
Yeah, it is.
But it's very needed. And Jodie, your business continues to grow. So what do you do for those people who don't know what you do?
Yep. So I do psychic reading. So I don't do a lot of, like, I'm not going to tell you your future. I will tell you where, like, if someone calls me up, a lot of times they've tried everything else and it hasn't worked. And so then they come to me and I can read your energy. I'm like, well, you're actually super resistive. Like, I can feel this resistance about taking this step or doing this. And I can read people's emotions really, really well. And I can kind of see where you're not ever blocked, but we use that language. Like, I really feel blocked in this, or I feel blocked in that. I'm really good at seeing people shine, and I'm helping them get back into that shine, or stepping into it. Because a lot of people are really afraid of their own shine. You know, they're afraid of their power, and they're afraid of speaking up, and they're afraid of talking and making decisions and trusting themselves and all that kind of stuff. And so my psychic readings, I can talk to dead people and all that good stuff as well. And that comes into it for sure. But I also feel like I'm really good at supporting people seeing themselves as they are, not as who they think they are. If that makes sense.
Yes, makes perfect sense. So do people come to you? I'm guessing it's at least two ways. One, when they're very blocked and they've tried everything else,
Yep.
and they're really stuck.
Yep.
Is that a reason that they would come?
That is absolutely a reason. And if they're ready to change, if they're not ready to change, they're not a good client for me. You know, I've had 2 instances where these people signed up for my mentoring or readings or whatever, and they just fought with me the whole time. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't working. Like, I'm going to refund you because I'm not going to fight with you all day. So you actually have to be willing to do some of the work, and the energy piece is the piece that a lot of people are missing. Like Eli and I, when we first started out, like, I remember telling him specifically, you know what, Eli, we are good people. We're nice. We work hard. We do all the night right things. Like, we take care of people around. Like, we are really good human beings. Like, why the hell is none of this working? And then I met someone that cleared my house, and all these crazy things like started to open up. And I'm like, it's the energy that I don't know anything about the energy, but it's the energy. And so I started to learn about the energy, and I'm good at reading and clearing energy, whether it's your house, your home, your business, your body, your mindset, your path that you're walking on. It's the energy that people are not aware of, and they're becoming more and more aware of it. I keep telling all my psychic friends, I'm like, we are going to be busy. The world needs us right now. Like, we are going to be busy, because the regular stuff isn't working for a lot of people, it's because they're not paying attention to the energy. They're using their words, not the energy of it.
That's so good. They're using their words, not the energy of it. That's a
Mhm.
really good reminder. We can try and push and force and
Yep.
make things.
Yep.
We can say the right things.
Yep.
And I wonder how many people, Jodie, know, they don't even know what they don't know, it sounds like.
No, and the energy, I didn't, my laundry wasn't about the laundry. It was because there was this energy in my house that I was trying to cover up, which is my anger, most likely. And it's the energy around, like, it was never about the money. It's about my mindset and the energy I have that I held around money, which was fear. I was always afraid of money and finances and building and blah, 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 all the stuff. And so it's the energy piece. Even right now, people are so tired and exhausted. I'm like, yeah, the energy in the world, like the collective energy right now is very heavy and very angry. And so some of you that don't know that you're feelers, that's what you're feeling. You're not even feeling your own stuff. You're feeling the collective energy. You know, during COVID, like the main part of COVID, the collective energy was sticky. It was so sticky. And even us that hold our energy really well, we were struggling holding our energy because it was a heavy, sticky energy. And then I would tell people to go above it. Like, imagine in your head a big cloud and go above the clouds. And then they're like, ooh, I can breathe when I do that. I'm like, yeah, you're going above the shitty energy. And so teaching people some of the energy pieces that no one ever talks about, you know, that's kind of my specialty, is the energy of the pieces. And even in your house and things like that.
So you do dowsing, you do individual work.
Yep.
So people could come up to you one-on-one, mentor with you.
Absolutely.
You also
Individual
do
readings, single
okay.
readings, teach classes. I do retreats. I do a fall retreat every year. And then I also, every other year about, it's been timed out, I'm doing a retreat in Sedona, which I love. So yeah, I try to do a whole bunch of things because I get bored really easy. So I like to have a lot of fun, and I do a lot of energy clearings for people, both their bodies and their homes. So I love to clear the energy for people.
And you've gone on a road trip not that long ago where
Yes,
you
oh my
show on the road.
Oh my God, it was so fun. So it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. And I went to South Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana because I love Eli, and I love that area. So at some point we'll probably either spend time out there or move out there, who knows. And so I've wanted to build my business out in that area because we just love it. And so I did this 2-week long road trip, and I did shows along the way. I did a couple expos. I did some classes. I met some people. We tried to fish, but the Gallatin was like flooding, so that didn't work. So yeah, that was fun. That was so fun. I love going on adventures like that. I love to travel.
So are people, it sounds to me like people are really embracing the work you do more now, would you say? Is it getting
I think people are finding more of a need for something other than what they've all tried. And it's not that all the other things don't work. They just work to a certain point. Then you got to look at the energy of things. That's what I find when people find me. They're like, I've tried everything else. I've tried the doctor. I've tried the therapist. I've tried the psychotherapist. I've tried meds. I've tried all the other stuff. Now what? And I'm like, you're not looking at the energy of it. Like you got to figure out the energy piece. And that depends. It could be emotional energy. It could be, you know, shit in your house, things like that. And I think that's a piece that people are scared to look at, because I think if they are going to start to look at it, they're going to let evil spirits in and all that kind of stuff. And that is not how it works. It just isn't how it works. So there's a lot of people that are interested in this work, but they're afraid of it. And I always want to educate people around that. You know, if you're a really awful, horrible person, you're probably going to have some scarier things. Most people are not that.
Yeah.
So they might have some fear come up, but they're not going to be possessed and all that kind of stuff.
So that kind of leads me to a question about religion. You know, I was raised in a really strict religious family where this kind of work would be looked at as like evil.
Evil. Yeah, for sure.
How do you deal with that?
You know, a couple different ways. Number one, I always try to meet people where they are. You know, that was one thing with my mother-in-law. She's very religious. She didn't really like my work. She thought I worked with unsettled spirits and all this kind of stuff. And then the day she died, one of the first message I heard was, oh, this is how it works. Like, it was so funny. I was like, oh, for God's sakes, really? Like, it was such a funny message to get, because I knew she didn't really agree with what I did. And so number one, I meet people where they are, because there's a lot of my clients that are very religious, or they grew up Catholic. They have a lot of fear. And one of the books that I recommend to them is the very first one that Teresa Caputo wrote. I don't even know the name of it, but it was her very first one. She's a Long Island medium, because she's a practicing Catholic, and she's a hell of a medium, man. She's such a good medium, and she talks to dead people and all that kind of stuff. And she's got a chapter in there that she talks about how she brought the two worlds together. And I always recommend that book, because I think out of all the things that I read and work with, that made sense to me. Mm-hmm. I was like, just go read it and see what you think, because she does all of this as well. But I'm not a practicing Catholic. I've never been super religious. I don't have anything against it. It's not my deal, but I would never take anyone's faith away from them. Like some people want to argue it. I'm like, that is their faith. Mm-hmm. Why would I ever mess with their faith? But there might be a bridge that we could walk together, so you can bring them both together. Mm-hmm. You know, but I would never take someone's faith away from them, which I think a lot of people in this world, spiritual world, try to do, because they don't like organized religion. And I'm like, well, then just don't like it. You know, there's parts of it I like to pray. I still, you know, pull in that God energy. I still love to sit in a church if it's quiet and, you know, things like that. But there's a lot of the messaging I don't like. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of messaging on the news I don't like. You know what I mean? Like you got to pick and choose.
So good. So it sounds to me then like it's just getting in touch with your feeling. I mean, how you feel about things.
What works and what doesn't work. And a lot of people think that they're doing what works for them, but if they're really honest, it's really not. A lot of times they're doing what people expect them to do. And when you start to kind of look at that and put some boundaries up and not be the person people want you to be, it starts to shift. Like when I first started, I had a coach that wanted me to be more professional and change my hair and stop swearing and, you know, do all this kind of stuff. And I did it for a while and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember going into my hairdresser. I'm like, oh my God, put some color back in my hair. Like, cause I used to have every color of the rainbow. And she's like, it's about time. I don't know what you were trying to be. And I was like, me neither. Just put something in my hair, because I couldn't take it. But I was trying to be this professional, you know, psychic medium and never swear and all. And oh my God, it was so not me. As soon as I started just being me, like then my business started to grow.
Well, I think in any business, no matter what you're doing, you're an accountant, you're a grocery store owner. There's a lot of businesses that are commodities. You can get this service anywhere. I bet, you know, even psychic mediums, they're in a way.
Yeah, there's a ton of us. Yeah, there's a ton of us. And what a lot of us that have been in it a while, we're like, you know, we are not for everybody. Like my work is not for everybody. And I'll know if like you don't match with me, I'll be like, hey, you should really go, you know, you should go talk to my friend Melissa. You guys would be a better match. But I'm honest about that, you know, and I think that's any business. You know, my accountant, you know, she prays with me. Like who does that? And it works for us. And so I think being honest with who you are is when your life starts to line up, because you stop lying to yourself.
That's so big. And I think it goes back to what we said earlier about feelings. And in business, at least the way I was raised, they don't go together. Feelings and work. I mean, you bury them because
passion and work, like God forbid you do something you're passionate about. That's why that was such a trigger for me in recruiting, because I couldn't help these people. I'm like, dude, it's just a job. Like go for who pays the highest. And it wasn't working for people, you know? So I think learning to do something you have passion for, and it doesn't matter what your business is. My husband loves his job. I would never do his job in a million years. And he has more damn fun at his job. And because he really enjoys it, you know, and he's a mechanic out at the sugar beet plant and he stinks and, you know, all this kind of gross work. And he's like, no, I really love it. And I'm like, man, isn't that great? Because so many people are afraid to quit their job because, you know, of the money piece. And I get that because I've been there, but there's other things you can do.
Well, I would love this to be a great transition to what your oldest son is doing.
Yeah.
Shouldn't don't we all know you're supposed to go to college, do a 4-year degree, get a 4-year degree? Would you talk about Foster's journey? Because it's so fun to watch.
Yeah, it is fun to watch. And I could talk about it all day. So I think one of the main things that was really fun is when he was in 5th grade, he had the best 5th grade teacher. It was a guy, he was amazing. Of course, I'm forgetting his name, but I'll think about it. And he came out to the car, and I could tell he really liked Foster. Like, he was one of those teachers that he always wanted to kind of lift all the kids up, and he wanted to lift the parents up. I remember crying because I was like, we had the worst year last year and he can't do all the homework and blah blah blah, and he's like, well, then we just won't have him do the homework. And I'm like, for real? And I remember crying in his class. He goes, there's no reason a mom should cry in 5th grade. Like, he's like, there just isn't. And oh, he was such a great teacher. Anyways, he came out to the car one day and he goes, I don't know where you and your husband are with this, but I really want you guys to start thinking about Foster as a trade school kid. He goes, he's not a match for a 4-year college. And some people freak out because a teacher said this, but I appreciated it because I agreed with them. And I just looked at him and I said, oh, I've known that since he was in 1st grade. I said, he is his dad through and through. And I know he's a trade school kid. We know, like, we can see his natural talent and, how he thinks and builds stuff and rips everything apart. And I said, nope, I get that. And he goes, I'm really kind of glad to hear that, because a lot of parents want the 4-year degree and they force these kids that would do so well in trade school. Mr. Klimek, that's his name. And, they force them to go, and it's just the worst thing for the kids. And so over time, Foster used to go back and go on the ski trip with this teacher. That's how much he loved him and his best friend. And so it was always in her head, and we would talk to Foster about it. And he finally got through high school, which was not easy. He hated high school, and he loved all his shop classes and all that. And he did great in them, and he excelled in them and all that kind of stuff. And so he actually, with us cheering from the rooftops, enrolled in welding school. And it was a 4-month class, and it was expensive for 4 months. It was expensive for 4 months, but I was like, dude, that 4 months will set you up for your life. And he excelled. He was top of the class. His teachers all came over to us at his graduation, secretly. And they're like, seriously, this kid is really a natural. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, he's going to do so well. And it took him a few months to find the job because he wanted to work for the union. And it took a few months for them to have openings or whatever. And so we always call it his big boy job. He's making great money. He's already starting to pay back his school loans, which he will probably have cleared in a year. And he's loving it. Like, I can't explain. He loves it because he loves, and then he was doing kind of the shit work at first, because you always have to do the shit work when you first start. And he would come over and he'd tell us how this old man keeps teaching him stuff and having him try stuff. And he had to try this big lift, and Eli and him would laugh about it because everyone screws it up. And then they're like, yeah, mom, they finally let me weld. And they looked at it and they're like, oh, damn, like, you actually know how to weld. Like, you actually know what you're doing. So they already have him doing welding jobs. They've sent him out a couple times. And it's the most fun thing to watch a kid that was never pushed in any other direction except where he wanted to go. And I see so many parents forcing school on kids that intuitively I'm like, they are not going to last in college. Like, they just aren't. And college isn't a bad thing. I'm not against college. I'm against forcing kids to go when they don't even have a clue what they want to do. They're spending so much money on something that they have no passion for.
Right.
So I struggle with that.
Well, going back to passion, and then how we said it's not often that you find something you love.
Yeah.
Especially early in your career.
Yeah.
You have to do the shit jobs you have to get through. You have to bide your time and do all those things. What if it were possible to find even something, 20% of your job that you love?
Yeah. His girlfriend is searching, right? And I remember in my 20s, because I didn't go to 4-year school either. And I had, like I said, several jobs. And I keep telling her, you don't have to get a job to keep for the rest of your life. Just find something that sounds fun now. Go work at Target, which she can't do because she'd spend her whole check there. But like, just go work there for a few months. Like, who cares? Keaton's kind of going through that. He's 16. So, and Foster started a restaurant job when he was 15 and worked it all through high school. Okay. And I knew Keaton wasn't going to be that kid because he's just completely different than his brother. And I was like, Keaton, just find something that you want to try and try it. And if you don't like it, you quit, and then you go try something else. God forbid a parent tells a kid to quit. And I'm like, don't do it if you don't like it, just quit. And he's like, well, can I do that? I'm like, yeah, you sure can. And so I'm encouraging him to try different things because he's a different kid.
Mhm.
You know, Foster's a work kid. Keaton's like staff kid.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
like staff. And I'm like, I want staff too, but you got to get there first.
Yeah,
So,
that's so good. And this does kind of fly in the face of what, at least in my generation, we were told. You do the 40-year
yep,
job,
get
right?
a job, stay there for 40 years. And it's so fun to watch kids doing Uber and, all those kind of things. I'm like, oh my God, I would have killed to have a job like that when I was that old, because it gives them all the freedom that they want. I have relatives that they are mountain climber, rock climbers, and they live in their van. And when the mom talks about it, she almost was like, yeah, they live in their van. I'm like, God, that's so awesome that they're in their 20s doing that, because that's when you should do that kind of stuff. And she's like, yeah, but they have 4-year engineer degrees. I'm like, then they'll use it when they're done climbing rocks. Like, who cares? And they work just enough to pay their way to the next place. And I'm like, damn, that would have been fun. That would have been so fun. And now I get to do that. I'm traveling around and, so I kind of created the same thing. But yeah, let your kids explore the world a little bit. Who wants to be stuck in the same job for 40 years?
So the underlying or overarching, whichever way you want to look at it, theme here, Jodie, is allow the energy. I'm going to say it like this: allow the energy of your life to pull you toward
Yes,
what you
guide
want,
you. Yes.
so that you
Pull you
don't feel
into it.
pushed.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Otherwise,
I pushed. I mean, you pushed.
Mhm.
We've pushed, and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Then you get into your 40s and 50s and you're like, oh God, I got to work for, 30 more years. I'm so tired already. And I don't think life's meant to be like that in this today's world.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the convincing that sometimes comes with a sales job, I remember, even you having those conversations where the convincing, once somebody agrees, it's like elation because, oh my gosh, they agreed to buy my product or service. And then every other time they don't, it's like depths of despair.
Yep.
And it's so high and low, and the emotion can be more even if we understand that emotion is just energy in motion.
Yes.
And instead of burying it, like you kind of explained that you did in that anger piece, what if we could find a place to allow it to flow?
Yep. And what if we stop judging people for where they worked?
Yeah.
Like, who cares if you want to go and do whatever? Like, it doesn't matter. I know there's friends out there that they do like these undercover side hustles. And I'm like, why are you hiding that? Like, let me support that. I love a side hustle. I think that's awesome. I had a friend who lost her husband and in essence, of course, lost his pay, and it was a large amount. And I was worried about that. And she's doing a side hustle, watching dogs. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so freaking smart. So smart, because I'm like, there is always ways to make other money. You just have to get over yourself and go do it, especially if it's fun for you. Just go do something.
So you have such a great story. You have such a great, not theory, because you've lived it.
Yeah.
You've lived it. You've found those side hustles. You've done flamingos on your lawn. You've done the things you needed to do. So when you work with individuals, or do you ever work with teams, or is it just individuals?
I used to always have two like 17, 18-year-olds. It was really funny for years. I always had a couple teens that I worked with. I don't often work with teens because they're not really into it. And I'm not just going to do it because the parent wants me to. Like, the teenager needs to be part of it. So I have in the past, typically I work with the parents, teach them how to work with the new, because that kids now are not the same as when we were kids. They just aren't. They are much different animal. And we were as well with our parents, right? That's like the new generations. And so I rather work with the parents on how to work with the kids.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll work with teens, or if I meet them or whatever. So yes, sometimes, but it's not at all a main place for me. I usually work with the parents.
How about companies?
You know what? I do sometimes when I do mentoring for people. I've had several clients that own a company and will work with, a lot of times it starts with me clearing their office. because something's going wrong in their business. They can't figure it out. And I'm like, just clean the slate. Let's clear your office. Let's see what comes up. A lot of times it's who's working for them and, you know, who their staffing is and things like that. And when they start to hire people, I'm like, okay, like, let's look at the energy. So you bring, you know, and I teach them how to kind of see the colors of their staffing. And then you bring this new color in. Does it actually match with all the other colors? Or does it like cause issues? And so there's kind of some cool ways we can work with companies in that way too. So I've done some companies, smaller companies, you know, these are usually, you know, solo entrepreneur companies with just a couple staffing. So I haven't really done corporate stuff except for the clearing piece. I don't know if I'm a good fit for corporate. I'm really good with the entrepreneur energy. That's more kind of my gig, but the clearing of it, sure. I will always clear spaces. I've cleared some humongous spaces, which is always fun. And I do think, you know, people should pay more attention to their space and clearing it and the energy of it and things like that, because it makes a difference, especially the last few years. Energy is heavy. It's good to clear your space.
So if people wanted to get a hold of you, Jodie, what would be the best way to find you?
Go through my website, jodieharvala.com. I am on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. I don't always check my Facebook. I have a lot of people that want just one question. I'm like, no, book an appointment. I don't have time for just one question. So going through my website or signing up for a class is a great baby step. You know, I do full moon clearings, and I have my moon magic class coming up, which is all about learning the phases of the moon and altars and all this kind of magic manifesting stuff coming up in July. But usually going through my website is the best way, because me or my assistant will get a hold of them and help them with whatever they have questions on.
Great. So an individual who's just feeling stuck or blocked in some way, not to use that language, but the language.
Yeah, but that's a language they use. So, I mean, I use it, and then we can teach them that that's not true.
Yeah. So individually, or if you're interested in maybe having a girls' night out.
Yeah, group. I love doing group psychic parties. Those are super fun. Yeah.
Psychic parties, everybody. Just look at that.
Yep. Those are really fun.
Jodie, this has been a pleasure. Just getting to know your story a little bit more as it fits with being real. This is what we do here: radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused. The E is all about energy. Yep. And that's what we do here at the Get Real Circle. So thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me. I always love our chats.
Oh, me too. I'm fortunate that Jodie and I are friends. So every now and
then we get to chat and talk and solve all the world's problems.
And we do that so well.
Yes, we do.
Thank you so much,
Jode, because we shine.
That's right. Thanks, Jodie. See ya.
Bye, everyone.